It's sideboard guide time, guys. This is Nikachu, and we are going to talk about the sideboard guide for August 2017. This is for all the Grand Prix that are going to be happening this weekend. So I have a link in the description below. I would like to very warmly thank all my patrons supporting me on Patreon. You guys, without you guys, I don't know where I'd be with this deck, and because of your support, I very comfortably can make these sideboard guides for you. I'm very happy to do this for the entire community, but because I have this support on Patreon, I feel obliged to make sure I have these sideboard guides out for you guys and to help make Merfolk great again. This list is going to contain Smuggler's Copter, and you should be very concerned if your opponent ever saw Smuggler's Copter and they are a white deck that could potentially have Stony Silence. If they are, I want you to shave all your artifacts out of your deck until you can have at most 4 in your deck. So don't take them all out, just shave them down to 4 copies. So you can have anywhere between like 3 Ether Vial, 1 Smuggler's Copter, or 4 Ether Vial, 0 Smuggler's Copter, or 2 Ether Vial, 2 Smuggler's Copter, for example. And this deck is also going to be playing with the Gemstone Caverns, a new addition to the deck. And if your opponent is a Path to Exile, I didn't mention it in all the archetypes, but if your opponent is a Path to Exile deck, then you have the option to remove Gemstone Caverns from the deck while you are on the play, and you'll have a 19 land deck, but it's okay because your opponent is playing with Path to Exile and is going to help you get some lands back. So let's go on with the list. I'm going to be playing with 13 Islands, 1 Oboro, 1 Cavern of Souls, 1 Gemstone Caverns, and 4 Mutavault. I should mention, Petr Sokric did not like Cavern of Souls. He played with 0. I didn't mention that in the last video. He didn't like Cavern of Souls. I understand where he's coming from. The only deck that's playing with counterspells right now is Blue-White Control. That deck... you can't really use Cavern of Souls very well. They are playing with 4 Spreading Seasons, and they are playing with Ghost Quarter, so it's going to be pretty ineffective. I don't really like playing in tournaments without Cavern of Souls. There's always some idiot out there playing with a classic control deck with tons of counterspells. I'm going to play with at least 1 Cavern of Souls to make me feel comfortable. Yeah, so we're playing with Gemstone Caverns, 4 Mutavault, 4 Curse Catcher, 4 Silvergill, 4 Harbinger of the Tides. Harbinger probably still very, very good right now because of Eldrazi-Tron, Death Shadow, and Affinity. 4 Lord of Atlantis, 2 Master of the Pearl Trident, 2 Mare Regery, 2 Kira Great Glassspinner, more or less just for Death Shadow, although it does come in handy in a variety of matchups. Like, it's a good blocker against Affinity. It still counters a lot of stuff against Eldrazi-Tron, like Spatial Contortion or Dismember. It also deals with just a variety of removal spells all across the format. 4 Master of Waves. Before I took out a Master of Waves for a... I just went down to 3 because I was a Smuggler's Copter deck, but do you know what? Master of Waves is still the best card in our deck, and is the only card that can bring us back from the brink of destruction. I'm going back up to 4. 4 Ether Vial, 4 Spreading Seas, 2 Smuggler's Copter. Now, I talked a big game about 4 Smuggler's Copter, but unfortunately, I think my playtesting was all trash. Like, I played like 40 matches against just lots of really weird brews. I got very unlucky pairings. I got paired up sometimes against Grixis Death Shadow and a lot against Blue-White Control, and then just a bunch of weird stuff like Core Clan Ironworks and some new white, red, green weird ramping Ghost Quarter deck, and I smashed that thing a few times. And what else did I play against? Some weird Tezzeret decks. So overall, I don't know if going more than 2 Smuggler's Copters is correct, because I never got to play with it against Eldrazi-Tron or against enough other things in the format. So we're gonna stick to 2 for now. We're gonna stay safe. If you want to play more, that's up to you. I don't think it's particularly wrong, but I don't have the reps in against all the tier 1 decks to know for sure if that's where we want to be. 2 Dismember, I definitely know that this is where I want to be. It's good against basically almost all the decks. It's even playable against Blue-White Control because there's always a situation where you've got this grizzly bear out there, like a Master of the Pearl Trident, but you can't attack through into your opponent because they've got a colonnade up, and so you attack and they activate the colonnade, and now you can dismember it. And usually the decks play with Vendilion Click, or sometimes they play with Restoration Angel. You can side them out, but if you see those Restoration Angels or those Vendilion Clicks, you can bring the dismembers back in. Not to mention, it kills Gideon of the Trials. So, sideboard, we're going to play 4 Ceremonious Rejection. I don't think it's a great card against Affinity, but I think it's a fine card. It's something that you can play. And it can like randomly come in against a lot of decks, like Amulet Titan and Ad Nauseam. But most importantly, it comes in for Eldrazi Tron. We're going to play 4 Negates, 3 Relic of Progenitus, 2 Dispels, and 2 Echoing Truths. This is the first sideboard guide where you are seeing me play with Echoing Truth, and I think it is just finally become positioned enough. There's just enough decks playing with Ensnaring Bridge, and there are enough decks where I think it has interaction. Like I like it against Blue-White Control if the control player, for example, plays a few Detention Spheres on our creatures. I mean, the deck usually just plays 2, but let's say they even use 1 on 2 Lord of Atlantises, and then somewhere down the game they play Supreme Verdict. We can definitely Echoing Truth the Detention Sphere back to our opponent's hand and then swing for the win. We can bounce back several Silvergill Adepts back to our hand in response to Supreme Verdict and get like a lot of cards off of them, or at least bounce one of them back to our hand. We can bounce a Gideon, like the big Gideon, I think the 5-mana Gideon, back to our opponent's hand when they tapped out for it, thinking that they would save them from the game. There's a lot of little things that we can do. Worst case scenario, we just save a creature, but there are tons of blowout potential against Blue-White Control. Okay, so let's get on with it. We'll start with Death Shadow. This is only for the Grixis version. We're going to bring in 3 Relic of Progenitus. We're going to bring in, because it eats up the graveyard for Gurmuk Angler, Tasigur, and Snapcaster Mage, we're going to bring in Dispel. And we're going to bring in 1 Echoing Truth. I actually am not impressed with Echoing Truth in this matchup. I think between Harbinger of the Tides and Dismembers, I have enough creature interaction. And I feel like this is just a very clunky, like without Aether Vial in the deck, I find this is quite a bit clunky. So I'm going to bring in 1, but no more than that. Going to bring in 2 Negates. Negate is just a fine card in this matchup because there's a lot of backbreaking cards like Liliana the Last Hope, Anger the Gods, Kolaghan's Command. I mean, you might top deck it at the right time just so that you can freely attack and know that you aren't going to get blown out by a Lightning Bolt or Fatal Push. And we're going to take out all the Aether Vials and all the Spreading Seizes. Spreading Seas, not that bad in this matchup. Cantripping is very important, and having Devotion on the board is also very important for Master of Waves. Spreading Seas makes Master of Waves so much more stronger in this matchup. But still, I don't know how much better or worse it is than Negate and Echoing Truth. Not to mention, Spreading Seas can also mana screw our opponent's red mana. But like overall, like I'm more willing to have like some counter magic or some interaction like Echoing Truth post board. So Eldrazi Tron, we're going to be bringing in 4 Ceremonious Rejections, counters everything in their deck, 2 Echoing Truth. And we're going to bring... Echoing Truth can help reset Ratchet Bomb. It can bounce several Thought-Knot Seers. It can just bounce any of their creatures in general. What else can it do? You can bounce a Pithing Needle, maybe at the right moment. It's just a very versatile card. It's a good... I think also in this case, Echoing Truth, it acts better than Vapor Snag because Eldrazi Tron is pretty slow. It's slow enough that Echoing Truth is basically better than Vapor Snag because we don't need to be so mana efficient, and it can have a really big impact on the game. So, like sometimes you can even Spreading Seas some lands and they get Tron anyway, but you can Echoing Truth the Spreading Seas back to your hand and then reassemble the Spreading Seas wherever you want them to be. We're going to take out 4 Master of Waves because he's very, very slow. I wouldn't say he's completely useless, but he's pretty slow, and he's very vulnerable to Walking Ballista. We're going to take out 1 Aether Vial and 1 Curse Catcher. The reason for this is that we want to get out of range of Pithing Needle targets. Curse Catcher is okay, but not amazing. It helps slow down All Is Dust, because without Tron, All Is Dust is a 7-mana spell. And we're just going to take out 1 Aether Vial to make sure that we don't get blown out by Pithing Needle. Pithing Needle is a card that Eldrazi Tron players are bringing in, and it's their weapon against Merfolk. And if we ever have like a 1-land Vial hand or something like that, we're going to get nailed with by Pithing Needle. Or if we draw too many Aether Vials, we get nailed by Pithing Needle. Because Aether Vial is definitely going to be one of the things that are going to be hitting. They can, and fortunately the deck does have a lot of activated abilities to overload their Pithing Needles. We've got Smuggler's Copter, Aether Vial, Mutavault, and Curse Catcher, so hopefully that's enough. We are against Bant Eldrazi on the play. We're going to bring in Echoing Truths, and we're going to take out 1 Curse Catcher and 1 Gemstone Caverns. They are a Path to Exile deck, so we can go down to 19 lands, and the most useless land on the play is going to be Gemstone Caverns, but we're going to bring that Gemstone Caverns back in on the draw, and we're going to take out 2 Curse Catchers because we're just going to be really slow, and we're going to bring in Echoing Truth. Against Affinity on the play, we're going to be bringing in Ceremonious Rejection, 1 Echoing Truth, and we're going to take out 4 Master of Waves and 1 Gemstone Caverns. I think because we take out all our Master of Waves, we don't need to have 20 land post-board against Affinity. Yeah, we just don't need 20 land, so I think 19 land is probably pretty good against Affinity. I think it's fine against Affinity if we're going to be taking out all our top heavy stuff, like our 4 drops. And on the draw, we're definitely going to be bringing Gemstone Caverns back, so we're going to take out 1 Curse Catcher. We're going to have a lot of things to do on turn 1 anyway because of Ceremonious Rejection. Keep in mind, with Gemstone Caverns, we can turn 0, play Ceremonious Rejection. Amazing. Just amazing. And then we can play our 2 drops from there. So I'm also not gonna bring in both Echoing Truths. I think this is a really bad matchup for Echoing Truth. I'm bringing it in because, you know, it's still something from our sideboard, but I'm not super excited about it. That's why I'm only bringing in 1 and not 2. So against Burn, we're going to on the play, we're going to bring in Dispel, Echoing Truth for Ensnaring Bridge. It's a big card right now in the Burn decks. We're going to bring in 4 Negate, and we're going to take out 2 Dismember, 2 Marriagery, and 4 Harbinger of the Tides. On the play, I think we are going to be less vulnerable to the to the haste creatures, the 1-drops, and I would much rather have these 4 Negates instead of the 4 Harbinger of the Tides. But on the draw, we're going to want to have we're going to want those Harbinger of the Tides, and the card we're going to want Dispel, Echoing Truth, and Negate. But we're going to take out Dismember, Marriagery, and the Spreading Seas. I think Spreading Seas on the draw against Boros Burn is garbage. It's effective on the play, but it's much worse on the draw. We're going to, against Death and Taxes, we're going to bring in Echoing Truth and take out 2 Curse Catchers. You can do this against the normal Death and Taxes decks, and you can do this against Eldrazi. Against Abzan, we're going to take out 4 Aether Vial, bring in an Echoing Truth, and 3 Relic of Progenitus. Against Jund, we're going to take out Aether Vial and Smuggler's Copter, and bring in Relics, Echoing Truth, and 1 Dispel. Against Ban Nightfall, it's a little weird because, you know, they have Spell Queller, so you sort of want to have Aether Vials, but they also have Stony Silence in the sideboard, which is a big deal. And they do play islands, but they may not actually play them when they know that we're a Merfolk deck, so you might have to adjust how you sideboard against this deck. Also, it's a Path to Exile deck, so you could take out a land if you want to, but by default, you can bring in 2 Relics because of Knight of the Reliquary. And yeah, basically Knight of the Reliquary. You can bring in 2 Dispels because of Collected Company of and Path to Exile. Echoing Truth is just a fine card in the deck, and you can bring in, you take out 2 Spreading Seasons because they have islands, so hopefully they just give it to us for free. Take out 1 Aether Vial just in case they bring in just in case they bring in Stony Silence, but Aether Vial is still pretty good in this deck, just in case they have Spell Queller. And we're going to take out Master Wave, take out most of the Master Waves because it's just a very expensive card. Against Bogles, we're going to play with 2 Echoing Truth, because balancing any of their auras can screw up their combat math, and we could kill the creature. Negate counters all of their auras. We're going to take out all the Curse Catchers and 2 Harbinger of the Tides. We're going to keep, I remind everyone every single time, we're going to keep 2 Dismember in the deck because of Core Spirit Dancer. Another reason we want to have Echoing Truth in the deck is because the last time I played against Boggles, they played with Worship. Worship! Unbelievable. Smuggler's Copter found that Echoing Truth and bounced it back to their hand for the win. Against Bloid Control, you could play this a few different ways, but by default, I've beaten almost every Bloid Control player I ever played against. We're going to bring in Dispel, Echoing Truth, 4 Negate. You're going to take out 2 Aether Vial, 4 Spreading Seas, and 2 Dismember. But if you see them play with Vendilion Click or Restoration Angel, cut the Harbinger instead and keep the Dismembers. Spreading Seas is just like a very, very weak card. If they can Detention Sphere all the Spreading Seas away, they can Engineered Explosives them away. Yeah, so Spreading Seas not particularly amazing. Forget about mana screwing them off white mana, that's just not happening. Aether Vial is just liable to Stony Silence. If you've got like tons of artifacts in your deck and they play Stony Silence, you're like super dead against Bloid Control, and you actually can't give it. It's not like you can wait forever. They can close out games pretty quickly with Gideon of the Tridals or any of their Planeswalkers or even Colonnade. So I have found that just 2 Aether Vials are totally fine. In my opinion, you can even take them all out, but I do agree that, Aether Vial is a very good card in the matchup. What else do I want to say about this? I'm not bringing in Relic of Progenitus. Again, I don't want to get nailed by Stony Silence. This is also a matchup where, you could keep the Vials in and take out some lands if they did not see Smuggler's Copter in game 1. But if they saw Smuggler's Copter, you definitely have to play like this. The risk of Stony Silence is very high. I have never won a game where I had a bunch of artifacts in my deck and my opponent played Stony Silence. I have won, however, every single game where my opponent played Stony Silence and I had no artifacts in my deck. The deck, Bloid Control, at its core, it actually just doesn't have a lot of answers. It's just full of air. It's full of cantrips and lands and just a few threats. And I have found that I can just win by getting 2 for 1 over and over and over again until they're dead. So we're also keeping Master of Waves in the deck because you know what? In the late game, 4 mana for just 4 power on the board is not bad. It's perfectly fine. Lantern Control, we're going to bring in 4 Ceremonious Rejection, 2 Echoing Truth, and 4 Negate, and 2 Relic of Progenituses. Relic is to keep the graveyard empty so that they can't use Academy Ruins very much, and you could also, in response to them using Ghoul Caller's Bell, you can crack Relic to draw a card that you really want onto top of your deck, if you can see it with Lantern of Insight. We're going to take out Master of Waves, 2 Dismembers, 4 Spreading Seasons, and 2 Kiras. I have never had so many good cards in against Lantern Control. It's wonderful. So against Tron, we'll bring in Ceremonious Rejection, and Negates, we'll take out Master of Waves, Kira, and 2 Dismembers. Against Smallpox, keep your Vials in and keep all your lands. I know it's an attrition-based deck, but the thing is, if Smallpox gets online, you're going to be really happy that you have Vial, because they can't get rid of it with Smallpox. And you can blow up all your lands all you want. It's not a big deal. And card advantage is also weird because of Smallpox, because you're discarding cards from your hand. So, even though you have a Vial on the board, you can never flood out because you can always have cards in your hand to discard to Smallpox. Or Smuggler's Copter for that matter. Take out the Dismembers. They don't really have anything good to dismember. Sometimes they do, but I would rather just take it out and bring in 2 Relic of Progenituses. Against Titan Shift, bring in the Dispels and the Negates. Dispel counters Lightning Bolt, and Summoner's Pact. But Summoner's Pact is really important because we can't deal with Primeval Titan. If they play Primeval Titan, we're dead. So have those Dispels ready for the Summoner's Pact. We're going to take out Spreading Seas and 2 Dismembers. Against Counter's Company, we are in horrible shape against them, but bring in 2 Dispels, 2 Echoing Truths, 2 Relic of Progenitus, take out all your Master Waves, also take out your Smuggler's Copters, because they're going to bring in like Reclamation Sage, and Kasali Pride Mage is always there, so I don't really want to depend on this card against this deck. They can always Court of Calling, or even, yeah, they can also just, we can't waste any time. We have to kill them as soon as possible. And every single creature I put on the board, every single turn, I want those cards to stick. I don't want to like play turn 1 Curse Catcher into turn 2 Smuggler's Copter, and when they play Collected Company, they're like, I've got Reclamation Sage here and another card. I'm going to bring out the Reclamation Sage and ruin their tempo. So yeah, I'm going to take out Smuggler's Copter against them. Against Storm, we're going to bring in all the relics to disrupt the graveyard. Against Past in Flames, we're going to take, we're bringing in Relic, we're bringing in Dispel because it can counter Gifts Ungiven and just a wide variety of cards in their deck, and we're going to bring in Negate for the same reason. We'll take out Spreading Seas because they've just got a bunch of islands anyway. We'll take out 2 Master of Waves, but we're going to keep 2 Master of Waves because it's invincible against, Master of Waves can overload Grape Shot if there's a situation where the opponent needs to shoot all the creatures on the board. Also, it can help stabilize the position against an Empty the Warrens. And the games against Storm should go long if you're playing the match properly, and you can tick the vial up to 4 and put a Master of Waves in play to help finish the game off. Storm can go semi-control with bringing in Anger of, or I think it's Pyroclasm, so maybe some number of Pyroclasm or Anger of the Gods, but they also bring in Lightning Bolt. Master of Waves is invincible against all that stuff. Take out Kira Great Glassspinner, although like it's okay because of the Lightning Bolt that they're bringing in, but I guess that's it. And it's also, no, and against Grape Shot. I don't know, at 3 mana I don't really want to play with this card. And we'll take out 1 Harbinger of the Tides. Against Dredge, I'm going to bring in 1 Echoing Truth, bring in 1 Echoing Truth, 3 Relic of Progenitus. I'm going to take out 2 Smuggler's Copter and 2 Dismember. I heard people say that they really like Echoing Truth against Dredge, but like, I feel like it's overrated. It's fine, but I don't think it's like worth playing. Like, I have it in my sideboard, so I'm going to bring it in, but I don't feel like it's a card that I want in my sideboard because Dredge is like a big deck in the format. Living End, I'm just making this sideboard up. 3 Relic of Progenituses, 4 negates, take out Dismember, 1 Spreading Seas, and all the Master of Waves. If I recall correctly, Master of Waves is like real garbage against Living End now because there's this creature that when you cycle a land, you like put a -1/-1 counter on all your opponent's creatures that basically kills all the tokens and makes Master of Waves useless. Against Ad Nauseam, we'll bring in Dispel, 4 Negate, 2 Ceremonious Rejection, and we're going to take out Master of Waves, Dismember, and 2 Harbinger of the Tides. Ceremonious Rejection, like Dispel and Negate, hit Ad Nauseam, which is the most important. Ceremonious Rejection can hit Lotus Bloom and Pentad Prism, which is their mana rocks, and are very important to counter if you can. You could bring in Echoing Truth over Ceremonious Rejection. I don't really want to bounce Phyrexian Unlife. Also, I would like to just add it into the deck, but I feel like I'm going to water down my creature base if I take anything else out. I don't want to take any more Harbinger of the Tides out. I don't want to take out Kira because of the Kira trick. So, yeah, I'm just leaving it like that. Against the Amulet, we're going to bring in 2 Dispel and 3 Ceremonious Rejections, maybe 4. I haven't played this matchup with this card yet, because a lot of their like, for example, on the play you could just Ceremonious Rejection the Amulet of Vigor, but even into the late game it's very important because all the Teleria Wests will find Engineered Explosives or Walking Ballista, which are really game breaking. They're horrible to see, so it can counter those late game spells as well. We're gonna take out Kira because it's useless, and Harbinger of the Tides because it's like really mediocre. And Yeah, you're like, you don't want to bounce a Primeval Titan, nor do you usually have the option to anyway. Against elves, we're screwed. We're just going to hope they have a bad hand. We're going to bring in Echoing Truth and Dispel. We'll take out Smuggler's Copter because they play with Reclamation Sage and they can tutor for it. And we'll take out Cura because it's useless. Against humans, don't make any changes, but if you see Stony Silence, take out a Violent Smuggler's Copter and bring in 2 Echoing Truth. And that's it. That's my sideboard guide for August 27th, 2017. Good luck in all your Grand Prix this weekend. This has been Nikachu giving the list and sideboard guide for Copper Folk in Modern.